Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
And welcome back, everyone. If you are somebody that leads a team, or maybe it could be even a nonprofit organization, doesn't matter. You're just somebody responsible for others. You find yourself having challenges. Things just seem laborious sometimes. You got a lot on your plate. You're trying to juggle all these things. Things aren't going in the exact direction that you want them to go. Maybe you're dealing with stress, and maybe you're not even aware of it because it's become a norm for you. We're going to talk about that today. Identifying stress, reducing it, your mental fitness, all of that. And she is somebody that provides life coaching to individuals, executives, and also in the nonprofit arena. She is our professional of the year. Carey joins us on the program. How are you?
I'm good, Steve. Very good.
This stress thing is everything. And I know it's easy to say that, but I lived it. I saw it, identified it, let it overcome me many times, but I feel at this point in my life, it will never, ever win again.
That's good.
I'm seriously at that point because a year and a couple of months ago, I was at the point very close to driving myself to the hospital because of stomach issues. And 2016, right around there, I had diagnosed with an ulcer that did send me to the hospital on my birthday. Not kidding. And it was a combination of so much going on, backyard renovation, kids, multiple jobs, waking up early, like a lot going on. And I thought it was happening again. It turned out to not be an ulcer, but gastritis and all that. But I didn't know what it was until I took some herbals, and that was the remedy, but also recognizing it's stress again. It's stress. You're letting it win, and we can't let it win. And that's my story. And I'm living by it. And not happening again.
Well, that's a good one. So many people face that every moment of every day. And stress is actually the number one emotion in the world.
Wow.
That says a lot.
I honestly, Karen, I didn't even know we would call it an emotion.
Yeah, it is.
Wow.
So when you look at stress and you see there's three perspectives or an anatomy of stress. The first one really are those thoughts that come into your head, which, as we've been talking about, those negative thoughts, that anxiety, all of that is coming in from your survivor brain, the left side of your brain. So those thoughts, when they come up, that's the first sort of red flag that you have. And then the second thing is focus. And really, stress is all about when you're ruminating about that stress, it's usually always either about the past or it's about the future.
Truth.
Absolutely.
It really is. And the more you say it, now it's clear for me. Why was I stressing? It was about the future. What if this? What if that? Something changes job wise. Well, what if this happens or I can't get another job?
Oh, I know. And it just keeps going on and it just exasperates.
Yeah, it does. But yeah, it's easy to say, but you go back to, and studies have been done, polls have been done. 90 something percent of the stuff you worry about don't even take place. You're wasting your time worrying about it.
And energy, and you're making yourself sick. Absolutely. Well, if you can, when you notice that stress and you can recognize that, and what you need to do is try to stay in the present. Okay. When you're in the present, that actually activates your sage brain, that right side of your brain that has all those positive thoughts and emotions. You know, when those lies of the saboteur pop up, that activates your survivor brain.
How do we tap that? How do we? You've spoken before about the left and the right brain.
Right.
How do we tap into that?
Well, we do PQ reps. And just to remind everybody what a PQ rep is, it's when you, for 10 seconds, you stop thinking, okay? And you look at a sensation or a touch or something like that, so that you're not thinking. So, an example could be just breathing and paying attention to your breath. You know, and let's just take a moment,
Sure.
if you're okay with that.
Please do.
Just breathe in and breathe out. Deep breaths and close your eyes. Breathe in and breathe out. And feel your stomach and your chest go up and down, up and down. Now I want you to take two of your fingers and touch them together with such an emphasis that you can feel the ridges on your fingertips. And then have all your fingers touch each other, feeling those ridges, and go down through the palm of your hand. And feel all those senses, the ridges, feel that. Now slowly breathe in and out. In and out. And feel your chest and your stomach going up and down. Okay. That's a PQ rep.
Don't stop.
Feeling those sensations. That melts away the stress.
Now, what we just did, focusing on breathing, fingertips or hands, was that a way to refocus our mind away from thinking about whatever we may be thinking about?
Absolutely. There's like 200,000 thoughts that go through your brain a day. That's pretty amazing. Your brain is always thinking.
Sure.
And most of the time, there are thoughts around those negative, fearful, anxiety, stress, all those kinds of things you're thinking about instead of thinking about all the positive things and thinking, okay, and I want to just give you an example. Say, for example, you have this big project at work due, and you start realizing that the quarterly report that is coming up due is not going to turn out the way you wanted it to, the way your board wanted it to. And you start stressing about that. So what do you do? What do you do about that? Well, the first thing you can do is do some PQ reps. And if that still has not gone away, that stress, then what you can do is start doing some contemplation. And what I mean by that is, well, let's just step back for a minute. When you are stressed, you cannot think your way out of the stress. Sometimes people will go, oh my gosh, if this happens, then this is going to happen. Oh my gosh, I might get fired.
Yep.
Is that the worst case scenario? No, I could lose my house, and it just
Keeps going.
yes. And it just gets worse and worse and worse. Okay. That's what you don't want to do. You cannot think your way out of stress.
Hmm.
Does that make sense?
Unfortunately, it does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what we need to do is we need to reactivate the sage brain, those positive thoughts on the right side of the brain. So how do you do that? You do PQ reps. And if that doesn't work, you're still finding that that stress is still there, then what you need to do is think about, okay, let's look at what the lies that the judge or the saboteur is telling you. And maybe we go right to, okay, I'm going to get fired. Is that the worst case scenario? Maybe not. Maybe losing my house is the worst case scenario, whatever it might be. So then you think about, in a strategic way, you think about how can I manage these lies that they're telling me. They're not true. I know they're not true. So what can I do? What you can do is you think about knowledge. What is it that I can learn? What knowledge can I gain if the worst case scenario would happen? So maybe the knowledge that you're gaining is that maybe you need to do things differently next quarter. Maybe there's some things, some programs that need to be tweaked because they're just not working. Maybe they're costing too much money. So maybe there's some things there that you can do. So that would be a positive thing. That would be some new knowledge that you could carry forward that would help you moving forward in the next quarter's quarterly report, in your programs, in your budget, all that. So then the other thing that you can do is look at power. Okay. So what is the power that I can gain if the worst case scenario happens? So if X happens, if I lose my job, what is the power that I can, or the power or the mental strength that I could grow to respond to the worst case scenario? What would that be? Steve, for you, what would that be?
Great question. It has changed over the years, been there in the exact scenario that you're talking about. Before I answer, I want to say these two words that you said that is the saboteur, as you gave you the example.
Mm-hmm.
What if? What if? What if I get fired? What if? What if?
Mm-hmm.
These again, all things that we're worrying about that didn't even take place. But if they do take place, let's say you do get fired, and now you're facing some challenges. But listen, taking stock. Are you healthy? Think about that for a moment. We don't think about that until we have a health scare or situation.
Right.
And then you rewind and say, "Oh God, you know, nothing is more important than my health. The heck with the job, the heck with the money, you know."
That's right. Absolutely.
Look at
So what do you need to do to make sure that you're not allowing stress to bother you? How, if you want to be healthy, then what do you need to do?
well, obviously minimize the stress because
Okay.
that's the number one, call it killer, cause of disease and all of that. But in the reframe, call it working on my mental fitness in the situation that you just described where you're faced with a job loss and now some challenges and maybe some worry.
Right.
It is now an opportunity.
Absolutely.
You have an opportunity. What's the opportunity? To get another job, to maybe go in a different direction. Now you've been given, you've actually been handed something and you don't even realize what you were given.
Steve, you've absolutely got it. That's the whole key to this, is looking for the gift or the opportunity. But people sometimes have trouble. They have this roadblock that goes up that they think, well, this is horrible. How could I find a gift in this? But if you really look at it, you can find that. It could be that this situation has caused you to have greater confidence to actually, in certain areas, or
Yes.
to go and learn something new, to work a little harder in this one area that you're not doing well in, which will, support you for the rest of your life, not just during this one instance.
Hmm. It's hard to see the forest through the trees. I know it's a cliche. That
Mm-hmm.
it's hard to see the big picture, but when you start overcoming challenges, you start realizing, wow, I got resilience. I can do the next one. The next one that pops, I got that one. I got the next one. I got that one. Um, can I give you a health example? We talk about that
Sure,
real briefly.
absolutely.
And the reframe of the mind. I've always been afraid of needles. I would get a blood test. I'm like, I put it off to the next day, to the next day.
What's causing that?
Um, it was anxiety and anticipating what could happen. What could happen? What if I pass out? What if this? What if that? It was maybe it's an episode in my mind. Back in the day, I had a blood test, and the phlebotomist left the band on my arm, and went and had a conversation, and came back. I'm like, "Excuse me, can you take this off?" And did, and then I almost passed out. So maybe that's in the back of my mind, but I didn't. Then I was fine. Fast forward to recently, had a health situation come up. Yeah, navigated through it, no problem. Um, I must have had 12 needles in a month. It doesn't bother me anymore because I
Right.
reframed my mindset to think that this is good for me. And now it's almost like a challenge. I'm like, what if that's going to hurt? And if it does, what am I going to do? I'll be honest with you. I had a skin cancer situation. They told me it was way worse than it was.
Uh,
And it was a mistake. And my gut said, don't worry about it. You're going to be all right. Don't worry about it. And it found out after more tests, whatever, that it was an error. And if this was 3 years ago, 2 years ago, maybe even a year ago, I would be in freak mode. Now I was like, no problem. We're all good. And realistically, I got 60 stitches, needles, nothing. In fact, I was laughing during the whole thing, like it's hysterical. It was a complete reframe in mindset and could have been stressed out. And when I heard the diagnosis, I was like, whoa. And then I let it go. And then that was it. It's worrying about what could be that just doesn't take place. More times than not, many more times than not, doesn't even take place.
absolutely.
To reframe.
Yeah.
Is it easy? No. I get it. Not easy.
No, it's not. And the third thing that I would say is when the worst case scenario happens and you're trying to figure out how to make the pain go away,
Mm,
maybe one of the things you can do is come up with a new goal. Something connected with the challenge you're facing, or something altogether different that you would have never done.
sure.
Maybe it's like you finally, we've been talking about health, but maybe we finally decide,
Sure.
I'm going to start exercising,
Yeah.
regularly. I'm going to start eating better. Or maybe I'm going to write a book. So every time that stress pops up, that failure, that fear, think about like what you're doing. If the challenge or the stress would have never happened, you may have never changed your eating habits. You may
Right.
have never started exercising or wrote that book. And you were talking about your health. My goodness, if you wouldn't have done it, taking care of yourself, who knows what would have happened.
Yeah, you're 100% right because I might have put things off and said, "No, I'm not gonna go. I'm squeamish, whatever." Then what? Talk about, I hate to use the word worse, but worst case scenario, what could I know what would have happened? Would have went deeper and blah 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 blah, and it was a span of literally 10 weeks, and I was
Right.
proactive and pushed forward, and yeah, all good, all good. And it's not about me. I'm just giving an example, but yes, if you don't seize the opportunity, and just like you said, when you're stressed out, refocus that in another direction. Spot on in what you're saying, Karen,
Yeah.
about the past and the future.
And I guess the other thing I'd say is really the most important thing are the PQ reps.
Mm,
And just, what a flywheel is, right?
sure.
And what we all need to be doing is doing PQ reps consistently throughout the day. It only takes 10 seconds. Make it part of your routine. Like an example is when you're in the shower and you feel that water hitting your body and how good it feels, you know, pay attention to that. Pay attention to when you drink
Mm,
a hot cup of tea and you feel that cup, how warm it is, or that first bite of food, all the flavors and the tastes of it. Pay attention and do that. And if you continue to do them throughout the day, that flywheel just keeps moving and moving.
you're so
So,
right.
so when you are finding yourself, oh, guess what? The judge, the saboteur who's the judge, who maybe is making me judge someone else, you'll recognize it and immediately do PQ reps to make
So
sure that you're getting into your right side of your brain.
when you say the PQ rep
Mm-hmm.
in those examples, and I experience them, I enjoy them. Like if you have the time, if you're in the shower, just feeling that water. I know friends that meditate in the shower. That's their time. They just quiet time. It just feels good. You're refreshed and clean. Enjoying that time or that hot cup of coffee or tea, how it makes you feel, how you look forward to it first thing in the morning or when you just get to work or whatever it is that really part of PQ reps?
Absolutely.
Mm,
What you need to do is make it part of your routine.
yes.
And it's great to do it in the shower, but if you don't do it anymore during the day and something comes up, you're not going to be prepared for it mentally. Where if you continue to keep that flywheel moving consistently all day long, you're better able to recognize the saboteur and do something about it
Mm.
rather than just let it ruminate and have you end up just like digging the hole deeper.
To your example, I took it easier over this past weekend. I'm always running, I'm always doing something. So I was like, I'm going to take it a little easier. And weather was a little funky too. So it gave me more of a reason. Monday morning, I'm very relaxed. I'm driving to work and I look at my steering wheel at a light and I'm looking at the detail and the emblem. And I'm thinking to myself, I really never took the time to look at the craftsmanship and just how cool that thing looks. Karen, it took me back to being a kid. In that moment at that light, it was the weirdest, I guess, epiphany that I had
Right.
of staring at the steering wheel, how I used to do that, even in my 20s, because you had more time in life. So it's just like you look at those little details and I felt like I got transported back to that time. And then I realized it's like, you know what? You got to take that time. That curiosity, that moment, that cup of coffee, feeling that warmth. And it's like, yeah, this makes me feel good. I like that. I didn't even recognize that something like staring at a steering wheel and just taking a moment could be a PQ
Yeah.
rep.
Yeah, I think that, the problem with, and I'll say with everyone, but I
Mm,
think America, I'm going to just say us because we're going 100 miles an hour. constantly. I mean, at least in Europe, they take a month off. They really seem to appreciate family time and that time off. And we are more about getting ahead,
Yeah.
getting that promotion. I mean, that's the way it is. I mean, I worked for 32 years. I know exactly what it's like to be in that treadmill of just going, 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 and constantly having to handle all those self-doubts that you have and managing them, along with, overworking and doing all these things that just cause the stress to just grow and continue.
So true. We think we're doing something good by working harder, but we're actually not. And like you said, take the cue. In the UK, they take like 8 weeks of vacation.
Oh, I know.
It's like, what about in Spain? Siesta, Italy, same thing.
I know. My son lives in France. Oh, August, they're gone.
Yeah.
And they go a lot constantly.
Lesson to be learned there.
Oh, absolutely.
Karen, this is just a part of what you offer. So glad we talked about the stress thing. It's everything, or can be in your life in a bad way. How do we connect with you if somebody's looking for coaching, looking to thrive? How do we connect with you?
Go to my website, www.thrivecoachingandconsulting.com. Spell it out, no abbreviations, or email me. And it's Carey, Carey, @charter.net. But my email is on my website.
Yep.
So if you can't remember that, you just go to my website.
I've heard the term PQ reps before, but never really understood it. And now I do. And I appreciate that. And everything we talked about today.
Okay, great. And remember, you can do them anytime.
Yeah.
You don't have to have your eyes closed. If you're in a stressful meeting and you're not happy with what's being said, you can sit there and you can do some PQ reps to calm yourself down.
Above all, just breathe.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Intentionally. Thank you so much for today.
Okay.
Appreciate
Don't
it.
just survive, thrive.
You got it. We'll catch up next time. We'll be right back.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.